TGIF, thank goodness it's Friday. 92.3 Nigeria Info, the midday dialogue on and running with yours truly, Sam Orkuchinedu. A beautiful song there by Burna Boy. Now, so it's supposed to be. Now, kickstarting the show in this hour, if you are not aware, it's International Day of Education today. And of course, we're going to be talking about all that we need to do, what we've done, and hopefully the milestones we've crossed, as if we have any, in the educational sector. We have a guest lecturer with us, giving us as much information as we need. Taking us till 11, we'll be talking power. Our friend from Stakeholder Democracy Network, SDN, will be right here. And we'll talk about corruption in power, consumer protection, what you need to know, your rights as a consumer. That takes us till 12. And at 12:30, apparently, Transparency International are here again. They've said a thing or two about our corruption position, the rating of Nigeria on the corruption index. And Nigeria has reacted. They've spoken loud and clear. We're going to talk about that reaction in that hour. Lunch hour comes up at 1, and finally at 2, it's Entertainment 360. Don't go anywhere.
What is information?
Information is facts provided or learned about something or someone.
How do you see dialogue?
Dialogue is a conversation between two or more people.
Define politics.
Politics is the activity associated with the governance.
And economy?
Economy is the state of a country or region in terms
For all of this and more, join the Midday Dialogue weekdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Welcome back. You've heard countless definitions about education, but one thing that stands true is that education is a right. It's a basic human right, a public good, and a public responsibility. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the 24th of January as International Day of Education in celebration of the role of education for peace and development. Without inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong opportunities for all, countries will not succeed in achieving gender equality and breaking the cycle of poverty that's leaving millions of children, youth, and adults behind. Today, 258 million children and youth still do not understand or attend schools. 617 million children and adolescents cannot read and do basic math. Less than 40% of girls in sub-Saharan Africa complete lower secondary school, and some 4 million children and youth refugees are out of school. Their right to education is being violated, and it is unacceptable. So there are lots of things about education, and a country that prides itself as a country with the most out-of-school children, this message cannot be louder. To help us understand all that we need to, for the purpose of this particular conversation, we will introduce him as a lecturer at the Ken Saro-Wiwa Polytechnic, and also programs officer with PIND. Good morning, Ebenezar.
Thank you so much. Hi, good morning, Sam.
How you doing?
Huge pleasure to be back. I mean, I'm always listening on air, so
Oh, really?
it's always huge to always come on air
Oh, my goodness.
and sit down on this special chair.
It's a pleasure. Welcome, Ebenezar.
Thank you
So last time we spoke, I talked about your 120 plus interviews. I always like talking about that.
Yeah,
Is it like 150 now?
you do. You always like to talk about it.
Just checking.
Yeah.
All right. So education. I don't know. Many times when we have conversations on this platform, I say we seem like media generally, and Nigerian for particularly, we seem like the guys who just break bad news. You know, we're always talking about things not working. But if you claim that you're talking for development, you have to reflect the parts of society that are not doing well.
Yeah.
So how are we doing education-wise in Nigeria?
Okay, so I was just reading a piece written by the UNGA president, who happens to be a Nigerian at the same time, Mr. Tijani, Dr. Tijani, who I would say in his piece written for Education Day, kind of like broke down what the picture is like.
Yeah.
Generally, there is no rating apart from what the OECD gives. Pretty much rates various countries. The last one was 2019. I would say generally, if you look at it at a very wide spectrum, more students are actually going to school now than before, than 2 years ago, right? Even though we still have the highest number of out-of-school children, because of concerted efforts by donors and various stakeholders in the northeastern part of Nigeria, where we have most of those out-of-school children, a lot more schools are coming up. I mean, there had been a mild, I would say it's a drop, but a mild drop in insurgency, a bit, compared to what it was before.
Yeah.
So you're having more people going back to school. You're having some more informal education programs coming up in the northeastern region of Nigeria. But that is it, really. Generally, a lot still needs to be done. A whole lot still needs to be done. There's still the huge disconnect between school and the labor force. So what students go to learn in school is they find out that when they come out from school, it's only different from what they need, to get a job.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I spent all these years, and then I'm coming on and telling me about, learning Python and learning, when you learn something totally different. So there's still that huge disconnect between both sectors. We are still a lot focused on infrastructural education in the sense of building schools.
Yeah.
Without much focus on the content of what the schools will produce, which is like the curriculum. What examinations are we preparing our students for? What are they even learning? What are they even starting to learn from? What is that build? I mean, we're using the 6334 system.
Yeah.
How does that system fit into modern realities? How do we ensure that there's enough room for practical learning? Is it just the 1 year IT in quotes that students do in university? I mean, so all of these issues are still there. All of these things still stay us in the face, even as we prepare for commemorating this day and discussing the issues. And I don't think Nigerian Info talks about negative news. Nigerian Info talks about what's happening.
Oh, really?
And sadly, this is what is happening. And we need someone to remind us all the time of what we need to change. And I think that is a very good thing that's happening with the station.
All right, I'm blushing through my dark skin. Now, this question might seem ironic, if you may. Why do the poorest children who need the most support receive the least in education? If there's supposed to be an intervention, I would definitely look at those who need it the most.
Yeah.
But how come the people who need it the most get it the least?
I mean, you can look at several factors. Corruption being one of them. A very good example is there's a famous scholarship. I wouldn't call the name because of political inclinations, but there's a famous scholarship program, that was organized by one of the governments, and eventually that scholarship program was filled with children of rich people, right? The same people who organize the scholarship, politicians, their cousins, their kids, and
people who can ordinarily afford
people who cannot ordinarily just go for these programs, but they would have their kids instead there. So I think it's corruption. It's also the general thing we have in the country and most parts of the world, where the poor gets poorer, the rich gets richer. So most emphasis most times goes to the rich people, which is why I'm really happy about working in the development sector, because you consciously begin to see that you push your efforts to be pro-poor. How do you reach people that actually need it? Not people who will be cool if they have it, but people who need it. That's like, this is life and death for them. Imagine the kids in the Northeast who cannot count, or who cannot spell, and they're like 5 years old, 7 years old. They need to know how to count at this point.
Truly.
If they don't, it's life and death for them, right? That child will grow up to become illiterate. Easy prey for insurgents to convert him because he doesn't know what he should be doing with his life. So I would say that it's something that is negative, something that needs to change. Society needs to speak up against it. Corruption is, you talk about corruption in a few hours. Corruption is one of the huge reasons why we have all those efforts that should be going ordinarily to the less privileged, going to people who already have it.
It seems the most progress made in education is by someone's benevolence, some volunteer somewhere, or people just helping out. So if the world literally decides to not be benevolent, if somebody is not feeling like giving, because I always think about this.
Yeah.
Whenever I see an organization, I ask, how do you guys get funded? And I say, well, we have donors, we do this, these people are helping. And I'm like, what if those donors just decide not to donate? So what if it stops? What happens to education in Nigeria?
Well, permit me to go religious. I pray it doesn't stop. I pray, first of all, I pray it doesn't stop. But I think building that educational sector shouldn't only be seen as something that government alone can do. Right? I mean, to cut the executive arm some slack. It's not something that is a sector that needs all stakeholders coming together. Private sector, people who eventually need people to work for them, the non-profit sector, which is the donors and all of them, and then government. Now, government has a huge role to play because government is the policies, the machinery that will make everything run, whether it's reviewing the curricula or ensuring that there's some sort of regulation for private schools. All of those things, are government's responsibility, right? But then, apart from that, the people who would eventually need the skilled workers to come and work in their companies and firms also need to be in touch with schools. I mean, my dad used to always say that then when they finish school, I mean, they say it a lot and it makes me feel bad. Then when they finish school, they didn't need to stress themselves too much. They had companies waiting for them already.
Very true.
They'll come for their graduation, yada, yada. I mean, you don't have this kind of things happening again at this time. But why can't those things happen again? Why does it seem like the private sector is a bit detached from education? Is it that there's need for bringing all of them together to discuss? Is there a platform where private sector begins to feed, the education sector or the schools what exactly that they need? And that is why PIN Foundation's program, the Niger Delta Youth Employment Pathways project, is trying to narrow that gap between school and labor force. That's the main thing. And then the labor force needs something that is currently 2020.
2025.
Or 2020, I mean. And then the kids come out of school and there's no connection. They're not able to defend themselves. They can't get jobs. They are really smart.
Yeah.
I mean, when people talk about, young people are not young people are actually really smart. You can see this because, I mean, from the programs we've had, the trainings we've had now, the trainings we have now are more focused on knowing what is needed in that labor market and then making sure they're like complementary trainings to add up to what they've learned in school so that it can meet up, with what the labor market needs. And you see guys building stuff like in 2 months, right? The same people who you think are dumb for not getting jobs.
Yeah.
In 2 months, they're, building applications and creating solutions to problems that you never thought they could ever imagine. So it just shows you that it's because we're not giving them the right thing that they need. One of my favorite quotes by one of the great education people globally, Sir Ken Robinson, he says, people love to learn, but what usually puts them off is the way we educate them. People always want to know what's happening, what's the latest information.
True.
But the way we pass that information to them is what's making them look like they are dumb.
Well, what pisses me off is when I see Nigerian students excel globally. You have the same guys
Norway,
here.
There was a story a few days ago, the girl in Norway. I mean, everywhere you go, Sweden, Norway, you're having them best of the best in their classes. Even from River State, I know like 5 people from River State who a few years ago were the best in the entire nation. Hungary, call it Denmark, and the same people who you feel are dumb here. So.
Well, the thing is, obviously, you don't want to make the executive feel or look bad. I don't have that problem. I can make them look bad. So, we have a situation. Let's say your car broke down.
Yeah.
What you need is help, support.
Yeah.
Maybe someone to come push it. Maybe someone to use their battery to jumpstart your car.
Yeah.
But if I'm that person who provides that, what I'm giving is support. Meaning you have to own a car. You have to put in the most effort.
You need to know how to drive as well.
Exactly. Put in the most effort, and I'm coming to help boost it back. I cannot come to your car that is broken down and do more than you. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So you're the government who owns the car. You've done something already. I'm supposed to come support.
Yeah.
In a case where the supporter is doing more than the owner of the car,
then there's a problem.
that's a dysfunctional system.
Totally agree with you.
So,
Totally agree with you.
do you think it's a case of us not calling out the government enough or not telling it like it is? Because it's your responsibility to provide basic education, at least. The story you narrated, I mean, you cannot count or read at 7. That's what basic education should have handled.
It's crazy.
So, are we not doing enough by calling the government out? Or do we need to do something different?
We need to do... I feel like we call out the government a lot, and I've been thinking a lot lately about, what the most effective ways will be to inspire action. I mean, the Harvard program that I completed a few months ago spoke a lot about trying to inspire action in public sector, getting people to move, from just talking to moving, getting them to actually do the thing that you want them to do. And I would say it's a process. I don't think we should stop. I don't think we should get tired. We should keep talking about it, keep putting pressure on them. Civil society has a huge role to play. They are pretty much the watchdogs for society, right?
Basic, yeah.
They're the ones who should push fights, get them to do something, let them not sleep, call them, petition them, do everything to make sure that they move. But one thing I also want to point out in River State that is particular to our state is the fact that we have infrastructure that was built a few years ago. Now, this is policies leave politics out of this whole matter. You have infrastructure that was built a few years ago. You have schools, some of them equipped with some technological equipment, built in various local government areas. And if you go to some of these schools now, you have grass growing in most of them, right? You have some of them abandoned. Like like when I'm going to school, Ken Saro-Wiwa Polytechnic, the junction where you turn and go to Bori, you have this big edifice that's facing you that's just overgrown by weeds and grasses and things like that. And that is taxpayers' money that was used to build these things, right? So for us, maybe we haven't gotten to the level where, because it's in the developed world now, they're talking a lot about content, changing the content of education. Maybe we are still at that infrastructure level. But we should not even be wasting the infrastructure that we even have.
Be available, yeah.
Yeah, we actually have some of these schools that are there that are overgrown by weeds. Why are we not using them? And then we still have the same city, the same states that you come to. You have kids selling on the streets. You have a lot of kids that are not educated. Why? So a lot of our problems sometimes is led by, in quotes, politics, you know, personal vendetta and everything. Not putting the people's interests, at heart, not caring who built what, ensuring that thing is actually used to help the people, especially at schools. So that's a challenge to the executive arm, to ensure that those infrastructure is actually used judiciously, to the right proportion.
Well, I've never thought that an hour would be enough to have conversations like this. So we'll make the best use of time that we have. Conversations with a visiting lecturer at the Ken Saro-Wiwa Polytechnic and programs officer with PIND, talking about Ebenezar Wikina. It's the International Day of Education today. Coming up next, we'll talk about the theme for this year and how technology and innovation in education should be employed. Don't go anywhere.
Get in tune with the trending stories. Have conversations with the experts. Ask the questions you've always wanted to. And get a bite at lunch. The Midday Dialogue gives the opportunity to explore. 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Weekdays on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Welcome back, still the Midday Dialogue on 92.3 Nigeria Info. My guest, Ebenezar Wikina, still here in the studio with me. Education, a basic human right for public good and responsibility. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed that the 24th of January should be the day, International Day of Education, in celebration of the role of education for peace and development. Now, the theme for this year is education for peace and development and the future of education. What does this mean, Ebenezar?
Yeah, I mean, this pretty much highlights the fact that education can be a weapon. I saw a quote on Twitter where someone said education can be a weapon for peace and development. Human capital development is like development, really.
Okay.
Because it's the human beings, whatever problem you want to solve, is the human beings that would eventually solve all of these problems that we have, whether it's cancer or AIDS or whatever we have around us. But if the people that you need to solve this problem are not developed, their capacity is not built, they're not able to, they don't have the skills they need to go and solve the problems, then they would not be able to do anything.
True.
For them to stare us in the face. So yeah, that's what it means.
When I saw this,
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I looked at where we are and I was like, are we at the point of education for peace? How about education for basic
money,
survival? Yes,
to get a job.
let's just get it first. Because it's one thing to get to a point where you have enough of something and then you can now channel that energy into building other things.
Yeah.
For example, if you have people who are homeless, you first need a home for them.
That's it. Yeah.
You're not looking at architecture for aesthetic. You're not looking at a very beautiful home.
No.
You first need a place for them to stay. Then eventually you can start drawing up beautiful things.
Yeah.
So are we at education for peace level yet? Or just give us the education for counting and writing and reading?
Well, like I said earlier, we might not be at that high content level yet. Like I was mentioning, talking about the curriculum change and all. But I mean, nothing stops us from working on everything at the same time. Nothing stops us from I mean, the concept of frugal innovation is the fact that you might be way behind when it comes to something, but why not look for a solution that gives you, a wide range of possibilities? So you begin to solve. So let's say, for example, technology. I mean, you mentioned technology before we left. Technology is something that is already facilitating access to education in most parts of the world.
Very true.
Huge access to education. I mean, I'm a huge example. I always say I'm a huge example and testimony of the fact that online education, online learning is very huge for people. I mean, I finished the program at Harvard University I mentioned earlier. It was totally online, really. I've done so many other programs. I'm doing one at London School of Journalism. So I mean, Coursera, EDX, Udacity. There are so many of those learning platforms that are available now, more than ever before. Many of them are even free.
Yeah.
That you can access education, access whatever you learn, something, a skill readily available to you, instantly. So technology is something that we need to begin to think about. I mean, when we were discussing off air, we talked about data.
Yeah, we did.
Data costs actually need to drop. Those are some kind of infrastructure that government needs to think about, some policies and regulation to help facilitate access a lot more. There's an example in India. Sorry, before you ask, there's an example in India of a guy. I mean, I saw his TED talk a few years ago. He called it a school in the clouds, right? He went to rural India and he installed computers. These are like old computers, nothing too fancy and classy. Old computers in one of the huts there, in several huts across the community, and left. He didn't put instruction, nothing. These are rural kids, and he left. 3 months later, it was a research he did. 3 months later, these kids were beginning to build applications.
Are you
now,
kidding
you
me?
ask me how is that even possible?
Yo, 3 months.
Yes, if you're listening, you can Google a school in the clouds. 3 months later, they were
No
building
instructions?
nobody to teach them. Now, he explained that the human mind can actually teach itself. We can actually be self-taught. That's why online schools, online education, and all those things, if the resources are there available for you, there's every possibility. Research has shown that your mind can help you learn those things.
Listen, I'm not even doubting, but 3 months is short.
Yes. Google it and Check it out.
3 months is really short.
And he
for
had
them to
all
have.
of these kids, and so now he has expanded it up to the point where he now has mentors like grandmothers, and not technical teachers really, just people who would just say, okay, why not check this, why not try this? Nothing too technical, still basic, still a small computer that does not need too much power, has some solar to power it, and it's having all of these things changing. So it's a sign that tech is something that can really, really facilitate that access that we're looking for, and if we look at it closely, we can really solve the problem of education.
If we also look at it closer, he was very likely funded by donors.
Huge donors, actually.
Okay. Shout out to donors for saving humanity.
Shout out to donors, yes.
All right, we'll still be looking at technology innovation and all that we can gain. Being fortunate to be born in this generation where technology is something that we have.
Yes,
but call us and tell us what you think. International Day of Education. We're talking about our progress so far. How well are we doing? What better can we do to ensure that education is the right, the basic human right that it is? 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and 0817-923-0009. You can also call 084-461-923 or send your messages to WhatsApp. The number 080-903-06-416. Please turn off your radio as you call us. Hello, good morning. Hello. Hello. All right, call back if you can. We're still taking your thoughts. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, turn off your radio.
I've turned it already.
All right, what's your name?
Okonkwo from Port Harcourt.
All right, Okonkwo, let's hear you.
We are happy that today is World Education Day. We're also happy for the topic, Education for Peace. And thank God for the analyst here in your studio. So I want to ask, in respect to this very particular topic of world education all over the world, then how do we reconcile it to the news we had this morning that the federal government said that they will not pay the lecturers except if they accept the condition they gave to them? Does our practice, higher institution practice in this nation, does it agree with this topic? Okay. Are we not behind while other countries move in their universities and colleges? That's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Okonkwo. Fortunately, Ebenezar is a lecturer, and I'm sure he would have a thing or two to say to give you answers to your questions. Tertiary education in Nigeria.
Yes.
How evolved?
Huge. I would say that a lot still needs to be done, but I want to tackle the point he made about compensation, and that's a point that Dr. Tijani raised, the UNGA president, as something that can actually be a constraint to the growth of education.
Yeah. He
said the teaching profession had derailed, has lost its its honor. People feel now like I want to be a teacher. I want to suffer. You want to like the OE salary, they pay 12K.
There's no prestige.
There's no prestige anymore. There's no compensation for that effort. And it's one of the, if not the most important, it's actually the most important profession that actually exists. Because without teachers, without people who teach us about the things we need to know, we would never grow. We'd never have the lawyers and the doctors and the engineers and all the people we have everywhere. So I think in looking at this whole reforms for our education sector, looking at teacher compensation and training is a huge thing that we need to look at, because if we don't have the right people to train the labor force, we would remain stagnant. We'll stay where we are. And if the money is not good, people will not be encouraged to become teachers. People will not want to get into that sector. I mean, if you go to a typical university, polytechnic, when you have people selling handouts and stuff, I mean, before I would say, looking from one side, I was like, oh, it's because they are greedy, corruption, XYZ. But some of these guys did not pay their salaries for months, right? And even the salaries that they're paid, if they tell you the price or the amount, you would even shake your head. Trust me. So a lot needs to be looked at in teacher, lecturer compensation, making sure people who serve in that sector actually get enough for their labor.
Let's go back to basic education. Do you think education should be free?
That was such a direct question. Feels like I'm running for office. That was such a direct question.
What do you expect? You wanted me to...
Wow. Okay. I think education should be free.
Basic education.
Basic education.
Yeah.
In most parts of the world where they have attained a lot of economic growth, the economy has enough shock absorbance pretty much. The economy can withhold a lot of pressure and stress. It is free.
Okay.
Where we are, I think it can be hugely subsidized.
Okay.
I think it can be hugely, as in very hugely subsidized, to the point where eventually can become free.
All right.
Yes, basic education. I believe eventually. I mean, but tertiary education, in most parts of the world is very expensive. The truth is that education is actually expensive.
Yeah.
Yes. But when education lives up to the value that its price is at, people will be willing to pay. That's why people are willing to go to Harvard University and pay $50,000.
Because they know they'll get the value.
Because they know that they will learn and they will meet the network that they need.
Yeah.
You understand? So, yes, for basic education, yes, it should be hugely subsidized. If we can get it free, that would be amazing, because that would be a very good stepping stone. But the sustainability of that is what I'm thinking as a development person now. How sustainable is it?
Yeah, basic.
To keep it free.
We're still taking your thoughts. International Day of Education. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Sam. Good morning.
Morning.
Dr. Dennis Anyawara.
All right.
Sam, honestly, when this topic is very encompassing, I studied in India. I was a rustic, I must tell you, before I left to study there. But coming back here, Nigeria sounds strange to me in everything. If you see what we are going through with the police and all, I find it strange, because I have found peace with the police, with the army, with everybody around me because of my training. The policeman stopped me gently. I stopped. I explained myself, and they let me go. If I tell you I do not pay bail in any police station, I come there and I tell them I will not pay for bail because that's the law. And somehow I explain myself, and they will tell me, okay, sir, please go ahead. And I quite agree with that particular assertion, education for peace. If you are thoroughly educated, I don't think you will find problems in any organization, anywhere you are. The way Nigerians reason into things differ completely from what I myself find on a daily basis. I read commerce, and I find that in this commerce, you read law, you read accounting, you read transport, you read shipping, you read math, you read statistics, you read everything. That is one course that is all encompassing. I think it's only Unilag, because when I came back to BU studies, I was posted to lecture in Unilag. You understand? If people get this consummate education, I think they will find peace around them. Everything they do will flow easily.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis. Hello, good morning. Apologies, call back if you can. International Day of Education, 30 minutes on the clock. I wanted Ebenezar and I to have a long conversation about online education.
Yeah.
So dude is learning from all the biggest schools in the world, and he decides to torture the universe by making posts on social media. And so every time...
It's not torture, I'm trying to inspire people.
Thank
Come
you.
on,
That's
Sam.
very inspirational.
Inspiration.
That's very inspirational. So if you follow Ebenezar on Twitter, whatever, like, it's impossible to miss. We're literally counting. Oh, it's Harvard now. Oh, that's nice. All right. So you've been on these many platforms, and speaking about online education, as we said off air, you need data.
Yeah.
It's impossible to push that without copious amounts of data.
Yeah.
And considering where we are right now, it's not exactly cheap.
Yeah.
So how easy is it? I know that the funding as well for some of those courses is not very easy. How easy would it be for someone who has said, you know what, let me take the advice and go online? Would they have lots of challenges or just easy things that they can?
So they will definitely have a few challenges, but trust me, the challenges are very small compared to the benefit you get if you actually give it a shot. The thing I like to always use as example is I used to have a small Nokia phone, the one I used for the interviews. Yeah. And with that phone, I was beginning to take courses from MIT. This was in 2013, 2014. So many years ago. Yeah. Right. And then we would do data that would do, I'll buy credit and I'll be giving 15 MB I don't want to call the name of the line now, so there's no free publicity.
Yeah.
And I'll get 15 MB free data. And that was what I was using then for like 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks when I buy, I'll get 15 MB free data. That's all I kept using during that period. And so there are these platforms that, I mean, technology is growing, and so there are a lot of advancements in tech that doesn't need as much data as much as people need. I mean, of course, there's some that the one I did at Harvard had so much video, conferencing,
So
that
streaming and all of that.
streaming that they needed data. But there's so many more. There's University of People, in case people are writing down. There's EDX. There's Udacity, as in UDACITY. There's Coursera, one of the famous ones, as in course, and then ERA.
Yeah.
These ones are very, I mean, you have the apps. The apps are built in a way that once you get the course content, even when you don't have data on, you can always read through, do your assignments on your own, and then submit when you go online. So these things are very accessible for anybody, anywhere. You don't need to know anybody. You don't need to apply too much.
You don't need to buy handouts.
You don't need to buy handout. You don't need to buy handout. It's accessible for anyone, anywhere to, learn a new skill or learn something.
All right, awesome. 10 minutes on the clock. Tell us what you think about our level of education and if you are in the wagon that's taking us to the promised land. Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
Ida from Nkoro.
Morning, Ida.
Well, education should be free in every year. Like if you go to Akwa Ibom State before, to the amount of our guests, they will give you. But now, if you go there now, they will even pursue you. Because they...
Oh, my goodness. Apologies. Ida, please call back. Hello, good morning.
Hello, is that your info?
Yes, it is. What's your name?
My name is Mark Donatis.
All right, let's hear you.
As we commemorate the World Education Day, the emphasis to me should be on basic education. And I want to use this opportunity to draw the attention of the River State government to a permanent school in Canada local government called State School of Boko, where for 3 years today there's no teacher in that school.
Wow.
And I wonder in future what peace will be in that community because of the children are not educated. I see disaster coming if urgent step is not taken. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm hoping we don't get there.
Yeah, that's a strong point there.
It truly is. Hello. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, the only distinguished oracle.
Morning.
Good morning to your guest.
Morning.
Yes, Temple, okay, I'm calling you from HA.
All right, Temple.
Oracle, we are talking about education and at the same time celebrating education. And when we talk about education, there is no way we will not chip in the standard of education we are experiencing in Nigeria. And using River State as a case study. Take a tour on a community secondary school Nihi, here in Eche, where the students learn under the trees. I don't think it's also a good one. If you go to Rumo Udugo in Number, that place is not left out. The children is even learning, will I say, outside the school premises because the inside the school compound is already forest. Then if you come to community secondary school, Ibeche, school resume on the 6th of January. Where students are meant to come to school with their own desk. You have to come with your kitchen chair. If you don't have a plastic chair, you have to come with kitchen chair. If you don't have any, you have to come with anything at all. Either you sit on the ground. That is the only alternative. Is there anything to celebrate? Yeah. That is what I need to. With all these facilities, poor facilities, dilapidated infrastructure, there is no, some of them, there is no teachers. Even though we have teachers, they are not coming to school to teach the students. Some of them go to their normal activities, and nobody questions whether they are coming or they are not coming. Is there anything to celebrate at all? Because if you come and have a look at these schools I mentioned so far, there is nothing to celebrate as far as Temple Local is concerned. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Temple, for that.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Spoke about infrastructure earlier.
Truly, and you can imagine how peace would...
you can't, it's not possible.
It isn't. Over to WhatsApp. Top of the morning, Sam. I want to know if online courses are accepted in the labor markets. I think it depends on what platform.
Depends on what platform you learn from. But yes, they are. They are. I mean, they are even a lot more accepted even abroad, even not even in Nigeria.
Yeah,
so
truly.
They are.
But I mean, considering where we are, you know, I had a lecturer here talking about the English words added to the dictionary, the Nigerian English. I think that was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
And he made a very solid point about how now when you use these words, they're not considered blunder anymore, but that he knows some other lecturers are not updated yet.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
So it's important that his colleagues do their best in keeping up with the times.
Keeping up with the times too. Yeah.
So you have someone who works in Nigeria with a boss who does not understand how far, and dude goes for Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, and comes back and like, I've killed it. Like, excuse me, what is that? So that's also a problem.
Yeah, that's also a problem. But the truth is that if that dude finishes that LinkedIn Learning, he will find the people who value that LinkedIn Learning. The organizations, like my organization, were very forward thinking. You know.
Okay.
Online programs are like a must for.
All right. So Ebenezar is saying, quit your job. Someone else will take you. 5 minutes on the clock. We'll take one final call. International Day for Education. Hello.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name?
My name is Martin Chachero.
All right. Let's hear you.
Yeah, I would like to appreciate what the topic of today. And then definitely we know very well that Nigerian education is really falling practical. Yeah, we have to tell ourselves the truth. And I think it's a good thing that online education is being encouraged because of the system that it works on or works with.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
So,
Thank you very much.
thumbs up to Ebenezar Wikina there at the studio.
All right. Thank you very much. 4 minutes on the clock. Ebenezar, finally, what do you see for the future of education in Nigeria?
Again, it sounds like a manifesto. But
What are you scared of? Are you going to run for something in 2 years?
You never know.
Okay.
So I would say education in Nigeria for the future, what I see is that education needs to, of course, grow to the point where it connects with the labor force. I stressed that a lot earlier. What we learn in school should be what we need to get jobs. We shouldn't be learning something different from what we need to get jobs. So
practical.
There needs to be that coherence.
Yeah.
Infrastructure also needs to be key. I mean, it's a shame that you're hearing that in River State people are learning under trees. I mean, you think that's not what happens up north. The government needs to look at infrastructure as something that they work on, but then not focus only on infrastructure. The content, yes, sustainable infrastructure, and then the content of what they learn, the curricula. You know, what is the plan for practical education? How do they, add what they are learning to class, in class to what they see in the field. So industrial training needs to not just be a thing where you go and sign papers and do a presentation, but it needs to be practical enough for people. Yeah. How does the school even help to connect them to do their IT? You just leave them to just go into the world and go and struggle and find where they do their IT program. So all of these things, there needs to be that, it needs to be real. It needs to meet the realities of today. Yeah. It needs to be what people can use, right now, and they can see the value for it. And as much as possible, it needs to be subsidized.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ebenezar, for your time. Your social handles, so people can be as intimidated as I always am.
I'm Ebenezar Wikina everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Everywhere.
All right. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much for your...
Have yourself a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Coming up in the next hour, Stakeholder Democracy Network, I think that should be 11:30. We have interesting conversations coming up. Don't go anywhere.